Great to have you on the show. Have the Tories, Godfrey, reached the point of no return? Is it over for them? Do they have any hope in 2024?
Well, politics is a funny game, but of course they've really done this to themselves, haven't they? I mean, the country voted Conservative on two bases. Firstly, they thought they'd get a Conservative government, which is associated with low taxation, low regulation, and so on and so forth, historically, or certainly to that effect, and to get Brexit done. Well, they've seemed to have failed on just about every single count. Yes, we withdrew our commissioners and we've withdrawn our MEPs, but we don't really have Brexit as we understand it. There has been no bonfire of the EU regulations. We've barely touched it. We're still paying them lots and lots of money. We paid them £2.5 billion, I think it was only last week, for a very obscure reason. We're now more highly taxed in the country's history, last 50 years history. So we're now suffering a very high tax burden. So everything that one associated with a Conservative government hasn't come to pass. We've also got unlimited open-door immigration, which is causing great concern. And so how can they turn this round in 18 months or so? Well, I don't know. I think if I was leading the Conservative Party and was Prime Minister, I could probably turn it round. But these people really aren't Conservatives, are they? I mean, they're sort of new Labour with knobs on, and everybody's now saying, I'm politically homeless. Who do I vote for? These people aren't Conservatives. They're neo-socialists. What are we going to do?
Indeed, but on what planet are Labour the answer?
Well, I don't think anybody believes that Labour are the answer. They're appalling because Labour are just saying, we'll give you more of the same. But people who might have otherwise voted Conservative for a number of reasons to deliver what I said we wanted, which was low regulation and low taxation, which isn't coming. We've got a Prime Minister in Sunak who we didn't elect. The Conservative Party didn't elect. We have a Chancellor of the Exchequer who are absolutely hopeless, who nobody elected. His own party don't even like him. And he's failed at every single job he's ever had, Hunt. Failed at health. He's failing now. So I don't think people are rushing to the Labour Party. What they're doing is saying, I'm not going to walk through the rain to vote for the Conservative Party. I can't bother.
Do you think that your party, your former party, UKIP, under the leadership of Neil Hamilton, do you think that Reform UK will have any kind of say in the outcome next year?
Well, Reform certainly not. And when I was on your programme last, Mark, I said that I thought they were a bit flaky. And they proved to be pretty flaky. They are not standing up against net zero, and they seem to be comfortable with the Paris Agreement and all these other things. They're sort of really not black and white. They're not really saying, let's grip this.
They also, Godfrey, got their knickers in a twist about vaccine mandates and the rollout of mRNA jabs, didn't they?
They did indeed. They came out in favour of Big Pharma. So they've come out in favour of Big Pharma, net zero, and they still haven't actually said they're going to mobilise the Royal Navy and actually tow these boats back. They've hinted at it, but it's not in black and white. So no, they're not the alternative, are they? They're not really a serious alternative. And I said when we spoke last about it, Mark, if you're going to be a new party on the block, you have to be absolutely definitive, and you need a firm leader, a charismatic leader, and you have to be talking the language of your man on the Clapham omnibus. And they're not doing that.
However, Godfrey, why do I get so many emails from my viewers saying, I'll never vote Tory again, I'll never vote Labour again. It is Reform for me. It is Richard Tice.
Well, I'm sure that they will have a fairly useful organisation that gets that kind of message going. But from where I'm talking up here in Yorkshire, people were all saying about 2 months ago that they'd give Reform a shot. They'd say, yeah, let's give Reform a chance, or don't vote. But of course, Tice shot himself in the foot when he came out with sticking up for Big Pharma, stabbing Andrew Bridgen in the back over this very matter. And Andrew Bridgen was only really talking about an inquiry. I don't think anybody could suggest the way things are at the moment, you shouldn't have an inquiry. And then he's very comfortable, as I said, with net zero, which is actually crippling the country. It's going to cripple the country for some time to come. So I think when the election comes along and the Reform member spokesmen come on, they're going to be torn to shreds by chaps like you.
However, concerns about net zero, an aspiration to have low taxation, low regulation, are these not a fringe interest? Godfrey, do they matter to voters in the Red Wall who lent Boris Johnson their support in 2019?
Yes, they do. These characters that we talk about in Red Wall are the real economy. They're the real economy. They're brickies, they're sparkies, they're joiners, they're cab drivers. These people get out of bed and do a real job for a living, probably small businesses, probably sole proprietors, perhaps working for a small local company. This is the economy. This is the economy. This is 80% of the British economy are these people. They matter deeply. And what they're saying is, for God's sake, stop taxing me to death, stop regulating me to death, stop mass immigration, and stop this crazy net zero policy. I can't afford to heat my house. No, this is very easy. There's an open goal here for somebody who can lead a party that comes out with some basic points like that. And I'm not saying it at the moment. I'm saying I'm not interested in aspirations. This Conservative Party came into power with aspirations to reduce tax and reduce regulation, and precious little of it we've seen.
Do you think public irritation with so-called wokism or extreme political correctness could be a factor next year in the election?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, everybody's so. I've got several friends now who are homeschooling, taking their children out of school, homeschooling. They're most uncomfortable what children are being taught at school. They're most uncomfortable about that. And I think that's playing as well. Wokism, yes, people hate wokism. And I've said this before in politics. The country is divided. I believe the country to be divided into two bits. There are those people who work in the wealth creating sector and those people who work in the wealth consuming sector. So if you're in the public sector with your index-linked pension, your salary, when it's lockdown, you're at home on full pay. Some of them are still at home today. So you've got the people over here, and there are 6 million of the buggers. There are 6 million of them sucking at the public teat. And everybody else is desperately trying to make a life in small businesses and sole proprietorships. And this is the split in the country that we see now. It isn't age, it isn't race, it's none of these things. It's who creates wealth and who consumes wealth. And the people at the moment in the public sector consuming wealth are doing very nicely, thank you. And it doesn't matter who they vote for. And I don't suspect your viewers will know this. Do you know that since 2018, we've had 450,000 more civil servants in just the last 4 years, 3 or 4 years? It's growing like topsy. We've got 6 million people supposedly unemployed, and yet there's people are desperate. Small businesses are desperate for people to come and work for them. But then the government's telling them what we must pay them, what holidays they must have, what hours they must work, all these things. And people, if you speak to small business, say, I daren't employ anybody. I daren't employ anybody. I just can't face all these rules and regulations. We need to free up the country, need to make our country entrepreneurial. It needs to go back to the Conservative Party of Lord Salisbury. And quote Lord Salisbury, it is the responsibility, the role of Parliament to free up the entrepreneurial spirit of the British people. We're regulated. We can't get out of bed without some blasted regulation. Taxes, rates going up. You know, £200 or £300 for a very ordinary house. You get to get your bins emptied. They've blown it. They've blown it. No, Labour, of course, Labour isn't the answer. Nobody's suggesting Labour is the answer. What people are actually saying is, I can't be bothered to vote Conservative again. We will fool me once, okay, but don't fool me twice. Oh, no, I shan't be voting for them.
It's funny that you should mention Labour. Of course, the polls would suggest, and yesterday's by-election result would suggest, that many millions of Brits have had enough of the Tories. They consider it to be 13 years of Tory misrule, and it's their view that Labour deserve a chance at power. But Godfrey, before you go, whenever you're on the programme, I always get a flood of enthusiastic and supportive emails. Many people would like you to be our next Prime Minister. Now, I know you've got a couple of hoops to jump through unless we turn Britain into a benevolent dictatorship with you at the helm and me as your henchman and chief spokesman. But, Godfrey, would you consider a return to public life? Would you consider running as Member of Parliament, for example?
No, I would if we changed the political system. If I could go into my constituency, which Howden Halton Prize, if I could say, I'm Godfrey Bloom, vote for me, you know what I stand for, I'd go back. But now it's all about you wear a blue rosette or a red rosette, and they stick them on dog turds, don't they? Nobody cares you vote red or blue. It's the same in North America. What we need is a political system where you can't be a member of a party. You're not allowed to be a member of a party. You have to stand up and say, this is what I believe in. And that's what true democracy should be, if you think about it. People voting for somebody with whom they agree. Not complicated, really, is it?